The satellite phone buzzing at 0300 hours wasn't unusual during deployment, but Deborah's name on the caller ID definitely was. My wife's best friend had never called me directly, let alone in the middle of the night while I was stationed overseas. "Hey Deborah, everything okay back home?" I kept my voice steady despite the knot forming in my stomach. Her voice was shaking, barely holding it together. "I need to tell you something, and I don't know how to say this." There was a long pause. Then she took a deep breath. "She's been cheating on you. The entire time you've been gone. 6 months. I thought you deserved to know." The words hit me, but didn't shock me the way they should have. Maybe part of me already suspected something was off. The phone calls that became shorter and less frequent. The way she dodged questions about her days. How she always seemed busy whenever I managed to call. "Thank you for your courage," I said simply. Deborah started crying on the other end. "I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner, but I kept hoping she'd come to her senses. I can't watch this anymore. You're a good man, and you don't deserve this." I thanked her again and ended the call. Then I sat there in my bunk for exactly 10 minutes, letting it all sink in. My marriage was over. 6 years down the drain while I was serving my country half a world away. But instead of falling apart, something else kicked in. Military training, maybe. When the mission changes, you adapt. When intel comes in, you act on it. I walked straight to my commanding officer's quarters and requested emergency leave. Family crisis back home. He didn't ask questions, just started the paperwork. By 0800, I was on my way to the airfield. During the long flight home, I had plenty of time to think. About the signs I'd missed, or maybe chose to ignore. About how she'd been so encouraging about this deployment when she used to hate when I was away for even short training exercises. About how she bought new clothes right before I left, saying she wanted to feel good about herself while I was gone. The pieces were falling into place now. I also thought about what I'd find when I got home. Part of me hoped Deborah was wrong, but a bigger part of me was already planning what came next. Because one thing was certain, if this was true, there wouldn't be any tearful reconciliations or marriage counseling. Some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed. The plane touched down at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport 36 hours after that phone call. I caught a taxi instead of calling anyone. No need to announce my arrival. As we drove through familiar neighborhoods toward my house, I felt strangely calm. Whatever I was about to walk into, at least I'd know where I stood. After 6 months of being kept in the dark, I was finally going to see everything clearly. The taxi dropped me off at the corner instead of my driveway. I wanted to approach the house without being seen first. It was Thursday afternoon, around 2 p.m. She should be at work, but then again, a lot of things she should be doing apparently weren't happening anymore. Walking up my own street felt surreal. Everything looked the same, but I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The lawn needed cutting. The mailbox was overflowing. Small details that painted a picture of someone not paying attention to responsibilities. Then I saw it. A black Ford pickup truck parked in my driveway. Not hers. Not mine. Not anyone I recognized. I circled around to the backyard, using the spare key hidden under the deck planter. The house was quiet, but I could hear music coming from upstairs. Something soft and romantic that we used to listen to together. My military duffel bag sat by the back door where I dropped it. Everything I owned for the past 6 months reduced to one bag, while she'd been living it up in our home with someone else. I moved through the kitchen quietly. Dishes in the sink. 2 coffee cups. 2 plates from what looked like breakfast. The kind of domestic scene that should have involved me, not some stranger. There were other signs everywhere once I started looking. Men's cologne lingering in the air that wasn't mine. Work boots by the front door that were too big to be hers. A baseball cap hanging on the coat hook that I'd never seen before. The music upstairs got a little louder. I recognized the song now. At Last by Etta James. Our wedding song. That detail hit harder than everything else combined. She was playing our wedding song while betraying our marriage vows. I checked the time on my phone. 2:47 p.m. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and waited. Not because I was scared or needed time to think. I'd done all my thinking on the plane, but because I wanted to catch them in the act. I wanted there to be no room for lies or excuses or manipulation. After about 20 minutes, I heard movement upstairs. Voices. Laughing. The shower turning on. I stayed where I was. Patient. Focused. The same way I'd wait for the right moment during a mission overseas. You don't rush these things. You wait for the optimal moment to make your move. The shower ran for about 15 minutes. Then more voices, more movement. Getting dressed, probably. Making plans for the rest of their day in my house, in my life. Around 3:30, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Multiple sets. They were coming down together. I leaned back in the kitchen chair and waited for them to round the corner. My heart was steady. My mind was clear. Whatever happened in the next few minutes would determine the rest of my life, and I was ready for it. The footsteps got closer. Voices in the hallway. Her laugh, light and carefree. A man's voice responding, deep and familiar in a way that made my stomach drop. Then they walked into the kitchen, and everything got infinitely worse than I'd imagined. She walked in first, wearing one of my old military t-shirts and nothing else, her hair still damp from the shower. Behind her was Leopold Church, my college roommate from 15 years ago, wearing his jeans and pulling on a shirt that he'd apparently thrown on in a hurry. The blood drained from her face when she saw me sitting there. Leopold stopped dead in his tracks, his mouth opening and closing like he was trying to find words that didn't exist. "Welcome home, honey," I said, my voice completely calm. "Don't mind me. I was just enjoying watching my wife and my old college buddy make themselves at home in my kitchen." She grabbed the counter for support, her legs apparently deciding to stop working properly. "You're not supposed to be back until December. What are you doing here?" Funny thing about that, I stood up slowly, keeping my movements deliberate and controlled. "Your best friend called me. Deborah. You remember Deborah, right? Your loyal friend who couldn't stand watching you destroy 2 marriages at the same time." Leopold's face went white. "2 marriages?" I turned to him with a slight smile. "Oh, she didn't tell you? Deborah is married too. To you, actually. Small world, isn't it?" The silence that followed was deafening. Leopold's wife had called to tell me about my wife's affair, not knowing that the other man was her own husband. The cosmic justice of it would have been funny if it wasn't happening in my kitchen. "This isn't what it looks like," she started, which might be the most ridiculous thing anyone has ever said, while standing half-naked next to their lover in front of their betrayed husband. "Isn't it?" I leaned against the kitchen island, crossing my arms. "Because it looks like my wife has been entertaining her best friend's husband in our bed while I've been dodging bullets overseas. It looks like you've been playing house with Leopold while Deborah thought her marriage was solid, and I thought mine was too." Leopold finally found his voice. "Look, man, I can explain." "Can you?" I interrupted. "Because I'm genuinely curious how you explain sleeping with your wife's best friend while she's married to your old college roommate, who's serving his country. This should be good." The kitchen felt smaller with all 3 of us in it, the tension thick enough to cut. She was still gripping the counter, her knuckles white, while Leopold looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "How long?" I asked, my voice still eerily calm. Neither of them answered. I said, "How long has this been going on?" "Since February," she whispered. "February." I'd deployed in October. They'd waited exactly 4 months before destroying everything. For months of me missing her, calling when I could, sending letters, while she was already planning my replacement. 4 months into my deployment, I said, more to myself than to them. "Did you at least have the decency to wait until after Christmas? Or were you already planning this during the holidays?" Leopold cleared his throat. "It just happened, okay? We ran into each other at that coffee shop on 5th Street. Started talking. One thing led to another. One thing led to another." I repeated slowly. "You accidentally fell into bed with my wife. Multiple times. For 4 months. In my house. While wearing my old college sweatshirts, apparently." I gestured to the University of Washington hoodie hanging on the back of one of the kitchen chairs. I'd left it specifically for her to remember me while I was gone. Instead, she'd given it to him. "We need to talk about this rationally," she said, trying to sound composed but failing miserably. "Rationally?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk rationally about how you've been lying to me for 4 months? About how you've been lying to Deborah for 4 months? About how you've been using my house like your personal hotel while I'm serving overseas?" She started crying then, which felt like manipulation more than genuine emotion. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under. You being gone, having to handle everything myself." "Deborah handles everything herself too," I pointed out. "Her husband's been just as unavailable as I have, apparently. Difference is, she's been unavailable because he's been here with you, not because he's serving his country." Leopold took a step forward. "Look, we never meant for it to go this far." "How far did you mean for it to go?" I asked. "Because from where I'm standing, it went exactly as far as 2 selfish people could take it. You destroyed your marriage. She destroyed ours. And you did it in the most cowardly way possible, while I was overseas and Deborah was at home thinking her husband was working late shifts." The kitchen was silent except for her crying and the ticking of the wall clock I'd bought for our 3rd anniversary. 3 years ago, when I actually thought we had something worth celebrating. So here's what's going to happen, I said finally. Leopold, you're going to get dressed, get in your truck, and drive home to have a conversation with your wife. I suggest you get there before I do, because I'm calling Deborah in exactly 1 hour to thank her properly for her honesty. He nodded quickly and practically ran toward the stairs to get the rest of his clothes. I turned back to my wife, who was still crying and still wearing my t-shirt like some kind of twisted reminder of everything she'd thrown away. And you, I said, my voice dropping lower. You're going to pack a bag and find somewhere else to stay. Because this house, this marriage, and this life you've been living behind my back, it's all over. Leopold practically sprinted upstairs to get his things. I could hear him moving around frantically, probably throwing on whatever clothes he could find. My wife stood there in the kitchen, tears streaming down her face, still holding onto that counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. You can't just throw me out, she said when she finally found her voice. This is my home too. Your home. I walked over to the kitchen window and looked out at the yard I'd spent 3 years landscaping before my deployment. The mortgage is in my name. The down payment came from my savings. The only reason your name is on anything is because I trusted my wife enough to add her to the deed. She followed my gaze outside. We built this life together. No, we didn't. I turned back to face her. I built this life. You just lived in it. And apparently, you've been sharing it with whoever you felt like while I was gone. Leopold came thundering down the stairs with his boots in his hand, looking like he couldn't get out of there fast enough. At the front door, he paused and looked back at me. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, man. No, you're not, I said matter-of-factly. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. He left without another word. The sound of his truck starting up and pulling out of the driveway felt like the first honest thing that had happened in that house in months. Now it was just me and her, standing in a kitchen that suddenly felt like it belonged to strangers. How could you do this to us? She asked, and the audacity of that question almost made me laugh. How could I do this to us? I shook my head. I'm not the one who did anything. I was overseas doing my job, thinking I had a wife who loved me enough to wait 6 months. I do love you, she said desperately. This thing with Leopold, it doesn't mean anything. It was just physical, just loneliness. Just physical, I repeated. For months of just physical. In our bed, with your best friend's husband, while I was writing you letters about how much I missed you. She had the decency to look ashamed at that. You don't understand what it's like being alone all the time. Deborah understands exactly what it's like, I pointed out. She's been alone too. Difference is, she spent her time being faithful to her marriage instead of destroying it. Deborah called you because she's jealous, she said, and there it was. The blame shifting I'd been waiting for. She's always been jealous of what we have. What we had, I corrected, past tense. And she called me because she has integrity, something you might want to look up in the dictionary. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. It's 4:15. I told Leopold I'd call Deborah in an hour. That gives you 45 minutes to pack whatever you can carry and figure out where you're going to sleep tonight. Because it won't be here. You can't kick me out of my own house. Watch me. I pulled up my contacts and scrolled to my lawyer's number. Want me to call Randy Haynes right now? He handled our mortgage paperwork. I'm pretty sure he can explain the legal situation to you. Her face went pale. She knew Randy. She knew he'd tell her the truth about who actually owned what in this marriage. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem anymore. I sat back down at the kitchen table. Maybe Leopold's couch is available. Oh wait, he's probably busy explaining to his wife where he's been spending his afternoons. She stood there for another minute, probably waiting for me to soften or show some sign that this was all just shock and anger talking. When I didn't, she finally turned and headed upstairs. I could hear her moving around up there, opening and closing drawers, probably trying to figure out what 6 years of marriage reduces to when you can only take what fits in a suitcase. While she packed, I called my bank and put a freeze on our joint accounts. Then I called Randy Haynes. His secretary said he could see me first thing Monday morning to discuss matrimonial asset protection. Apparently, I wasn't the first soldier who'd come home to this kind of surprise. About 20 minutes later, she came downstairs with 2 suitcases and her laptop bag. She'd changed into jeans and one of her own shirts, not mine. This is crazy, she said, setting the bags by the front door. We can work through this. Couples survive infidelity all the time. Some couples do, I agreed. But those couples usually involve two people who actually want to work through it. I don't. You won't even try? I looked at her standing there with her packed bags, still trying to negotiate her way back into a life she'd already destroyed. You want to know what I was doing while you and Leopold were upstairs playing house? I was sitting in this kitchen, looking at the evidence of your affair scattered all over my home, and I felt relieved. That stopped her cold. Relieved? Relieved that I finally knew the truth. Relieved that I could stop wondering why you seemed so distant on phone calls. Relieved that I didn't have to pretend everything was fine when I got that feeling in my gut that something was wrong. I stood up and walked toward the front door. You want to know the honest truth? This marriage has been over for months. You just made it official. She was crying again, but I was done being moved by her tears. Please don't do this. We can go to counseling. We can start over. No, we can't. I opened the front door and held it for her. Because starting over requires two people who respect each other enough to be honest. You lost that privilege 4 months ago. She picked up her bags and walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back at me. What about everything we built together? 6 years of marriage. You threw it away the first time you brought him into our bed, I said simply. I'm just making it official. After she left, I sat back down in the kitchen and called Deborah. She answered on the first ring. How bad was it? She asked immediately. Worse than you probably imagined, I told her. And I think you and I need to have a longer conversation about your husband. Deborah came over that evening with a bottle of wine and a folder full of documents. She looked exhausted, like someone who'd been carrying a heavy secret for too long and was finally free of the weight. I've been documenting everything for 3 weeks, she said, sitting down at my kitchen table and opening the folder. Photos, receipts, text messages I found on Leopold's phone. I knew this conversation was coming eventually. She spread the evidence across the table like a prosecutor building a case. Pictures of Leopold's truck in my driveway on days when I was calling home and getting voicemail. Credit card statements showing purchases at restaurants and hotels around town. Screenshots of text messages between him and my wife that were way too intimate for just friends. You've been busy, I said, looking through the documentation. I had to be sure before I destroyed 2 marriages, she replied. Though apparently, they were already destroyed. I just didn't want to be the one responsible for ending something that could have been saved. One of the text message screenshots caught my attention. It was from my wife to Leopold. He called during lunch today. I had to pretend I was at work while you were literally in bed next to me. This is getting harder to hide. Leopold's response. Maybe it's time to tell them both. We can't keep living like this. My wife. Not yet. Let me figure out how to handle his return in December. Maybe by then we'll know what we want to do. I set the phone down carefully. They were planning to leave us both. Deborah nodded. That's what it looks like. Leopold's been working extra shifts for months, telling me he was saving up for our anniversary trip to Hawaii. Turns out he was saving up to start fresh with your wife. How long have you known? I suspected something in March when he started acting different. Working late, not answering his phone, new clothes, new cologne. She took a sip of wine. The same signs every woman recognizes but hopes she's wrong about. Why didn't you confront them sooner? Because I kept thinking maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe the military deployment was making me suspicious of innocent things. She gestured at the evidence scattered across the table. It wasn't until I found the hotel receipts that I knew for certain. I picked up one of the receipts. The Marriott downtown, 3 weeks ago. A Sunday afternoon when I called home and my wife said she was having a quiet day cleaning the house. The hardest part, Deborah continued, was realizing that she was supposed to be my best friend. I've known her since college. I was her maid of honor. I helped her plan your surprise birthday party last year. What changed your mind about calling me? Leopold came home last Tuesday with a hickey on his neck, she said matter-of-factly. When I asked about it, he said he'd bumped into a cabinet at work. I work in healthcare. I know what a hickey looks like versus what a bruise looks like. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo she'd taken. I confronted him that night, and he broke down and confessed everything. Said it started as just talking, then became emotional support, then became physical. Said he loved me, but was confused about his feelings. What did you tell him? I told him he had 48 hours to tell you himself, or I would. She put the phone away. He spent 2 days trying to convince me that telling you would destroy everyone's lives unnecessarily. Said they were going to end it anyway. But they weren't going to end it. No, they weren't. They were planning to leave us both, and start over together. I found plane tickets to Las Vegas in Leopold's laptop bag yesterday morning. One-way tickets for next month. The kitchen felt colder suddenly. Not only had they been betraying us both, they'd been planning their escape. Their new life together while I was still deployed and Deborah was still believing her husband's lies. What happened when you confronted him about the tickets? He admitted everything. Said he was going to tell me after you got back in December. Said they were going to file for divorce and move to Nevada together. Her voice was steady, but I could see the anger in her eyes. 6 years of marriage, and he was going to end it with a text message after he was already gone. I leaned back in my chair, processing the full scope of their betrayal. They thought they had it all figured out. They did have it all figured out, Deborah said. What they didn't count on was me growing a backbone and refusing to be anyone's fool. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from my wife. Can we please talk? I'm staying at my sister's house tonight, but we need to discuss this rationally. I showed the message to Deborah, who laughed bitterly. Rationally? That's rich coming from someone who's been living a double life for 4 months. What are you going to do about Leopold? I asked. I already filed for divorce this morning, she said simply. Randy Haynes is representing me too. Apparently, he's handled a lot of military family cases. This morning? You work fast. I've had 3 weeks to think about it, she replied. 3 weeks of watching my husband lie to my face every single day while he was planning to abandon me. I'm done being the understanding wife. Another text came through from my wife. I know you're angry, but this doesn't have to be the end of everything. We can rebuild our marriage stronger than before. I typed back, there is no our marriage anymore. There hasn't been since February. Her response came immediately. You're making a mistake. What Leopold and I had was just physical. What you and I have is genuine love. I showed that to Deborah too. She shook her head in disgust. She really thinks she can minimize 4 months of betrayal by calling it just physical. The funny thing is, I said, she's probably right that what we had was love. Past tense. But love requires trust, and trust requires honesty. She destroyed both. My phone rang. My wife calling. I declined the call. She called again. I declined again. Then she started texting rapidly. Please answer your phone. We need to talk about this. You can't just shut me out. I'm still your wife. I turned to Deborah. Want to help me draft a response she'll actually understand? Absolutely. We spent the next hour crafting a single text message that would make our position crystal clear. Your relationship with Leopold wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. It was 4 months of deliberate choices that destroyed our marriage. The person I married would never have done this, which means the person I married doesn't exist anymore. Randy Haynes will be in touch about divorce proceedings. Don't contact me again except through your lawyer. After I sent it, Deborah raised her wine glass. To finding out who people actually are before it's too late. To friends who have the courage to tell the truth. I replied, clinking my glass against hers. Outside, Leopold's truck pulled into the driveway. Through the kitchen window, we watched him sit there for several minutes, probably working up the courage to come inside. Think he's here to apologize? Deborah asked. I think he's here because my wife told him to fix this, I said. She probably thinks he can smooth things over between us guys while she works on getting back in my good graces. Leopold finally got out of the truck and walked toward the front door. When the doorbell rang, I didn't move. Aren't you going to answer it? Nope, I said, refilling my wine glass. I'm done having conversations with people who've been lying to me for months. From now on, everything goes through lawyers. The doorbell rang 3 more times. Then Leopold started knocking. Eventually, he gave up and left. How does it feel? Deborah asked. How does what feel? Being free of people who don't deserve you. I thought about it for a moment. It feels like I can finally breathe again. 6 months later, I was sitting in the same kitchen, but everything else had changed. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks ago. The house was officially mine, along with most of our shared assets. Turns out having documented evidence of adultery and abandonment makes divorce proceedings pretty straightforward, especially when your spouse's boyfriend was also getting divorced for the same reasons. Randy Haynes had been worth every penny. My ex-wife's lawyer had tried to argue for spousal support and half the house value, but the evidence Deborah and I had collected made those arguments impossible to sustain. The text messages about planning to abandon both marriages, the hotel receipts, the Las Vegas tickets, all of it painted a clear picture of premeditated betrayal. The final settlement gave her exactly what she'd contributed to the marriage financially, which wasn't much. She got her car, her personal belongings, and enough money to start over somewhere else. I kept the house, my military pension, and my dignity. Leopold hadn't fared much better. Deborah had taken him for everything she could legally claim, which turned out to be substantial since she'd been the primary breadwinner while he was supposedly working extra shifts. Their house sold last month, and she moved into a nice condo downtown. Leopold was living in a studio apartment across town, working at a warehouse to pay his legal fees. As for my ex-wife, I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that she and Leopold had tried to make their relationship work after our divorces were final. Apparently, what seemed romantic and exciting as a secret affair felt different when it became their everyday existence. They broke up 2 months ago after a series of spectacular fights, mostly about money and blame for destroying their previous lives. She tried to contact me several times during the divorce proceedings, always with the same theme. She'd made a mistake. She still loved me. She wanted to work things out. Each time, I referred her back to my lawyer. I never responded directly, and eventually, she stopped trying. The strangest part was how little I missed the marriage itself. I missed the idea of having a partner, sure. I missed companionship and shared experiences. But I didn't miss her specifically, and I certainly didn't miss the constant anxiety I'd felt during deployment about whether something was wrong at home. Deborah had become a genuine friend through all of this. Not romantic, just someone who understood exactly what I'd been through because she'd experienced the same betrayal. We had dinner occasionally, compared notes on how we were rebuilding our lives, and helped each other navigate the practical aspects of suddenly being single again. Any regrets? She'd asked me last week over coffee. About the divorce? None whatsoever. I thought about it for a moment. Maybe I regret not seeing the signs earlier, but I don't regret ending it once I knew the truth. What about 6 years of marriage? That has to feel like a waste. Not a waste, I'd said. A learning experience. I know what I won't tolerate in my next relationship. Today was Saturday, and I was enjoying the kind of quiet morning I dreamed about during deployment. Coffee at my own pace, reading the news without interruption, making plans for the weekend that didn't require consulting anyone else's schedule or preferences. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. How are you doing? Any word from the ex? I typed back, doing great. No contact from her in 2 months. Think she finally got the message. Good. You deserve better than someone who can't appreciate what they have. She was right. I did deserve better. More importantly, I'd learned I was better off alone than with someone who couldn't be trusted. The doorbell rang around noon. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I looked through the peephole, I saw a delivery truck. The driver had a package that required a signature. It was from my lawyer's office. Inside was the final paperwork confirming that my ex-wife had officially changed her name back to her maiden name and updated her address with the court. The last administrative detail of our marriage finally closed. I took the paperwork to the kitchen table, signed my acknowledgement, and filed it away with all the other divorce documents. Then I threw the envelope in the trash and went back to my coffee. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, I checked the message. It was her voice, shaky and uncertain. Hi, it's me. I know you probably won't want to hear this, but I wanted you to know that I've been thinking about you. About us. I made a huge mistake, and I'm hoping maybe we could talk sometime. I know I have no right to ask, but I'm hoping you might be willing to give me a chance to explain everything properly. I'm in a better place now, and I think I could be the wife you deserve the first time. Please call me if you're open to talking. I deleted the message without listening to it a second time. Then I blocked her number. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. Some mistakes are too big to forgive, and some people prove through their choices that they don't deserve second chances. I spent the afternoon working in the backyard, replanting the garden she'd let die while she was busy with her affair. Fresh soil, new plants, a clean start for everything. As the sun was setting, Deborah texted, "Barbecue tomorrow at my place. You in?" "Absolutely," I typed back. Life was good. Different than I'd planned 6 months ago, but good. I had my house, my career, my self-respect, and friends who'd proven they could be trusted when it mattered most. My ex-wife was someone else's problem now. Or more accurately, she was her own problem, dealing with the consequences of choices she'd made when she thought she could have everything without sacrificing anything. Meanwhile, I was building something better, something honest, something that didn't require me to wonder what was happening behind my back or worry about being betrayed by the people closest to me. It was exactly the life I deserved, and I'd never been more certain that I'd made the right choice in walking away from people who didn't value what they had until it was gone. The chapter was closed. and I was ready for whatever came next.